Hey guys, Jake from 80/20 Media, back again today to bring you another video on common problems and reliability. In my last video, I touched on Ford's 6.8 liter V10 Triton engine. So today we're going to go ahead and keep it on theme, and we're going to talk about Ford's 5.4 liter V8 Triton. The 5.4 liter V8 was also released in 1997. However, it had a slightly shorter lifespan and was only used through 2014. It was predominantly used in the F-150. However, it was also used in a number of other Lincoln and Ford cars like the Expedition and the Navigator. And interestingly enough, it was actually used in the Mustang GT500 and the Ford GT for a couple of years. It was initially a 2-valve design up until 2004 when they switched to a 3-valve design, and the GT500 and Ford GT versions used a 4-valve that was a little bit more performance oriented than the 2-valve and the 3-valve, hence the cars that it was used in. With that brief background, let's go ahead and jump into common problems with the 5.4 liter Triton. So the first problem, also an issue on the V10s, is with spark plug blowout. The spark plugs on the Triton engines are extremely short because of the short spark plug cavities that they go in. And so because of that, the spark plugs only have about 4 threads on them compared to a traditional spark plug, which has 10 to 12 threads on it. And so there's not a whole lot holding it in place. And what can happen is the spark plugs can actually get heated up to the point that they essentially weld themselves in place. And then that kind of messes with the structural strength of the spark plugs, and it can cause them to actually shoot out and blow through the head. When this happens, it essentially takes out the head, requires a good bit of kind of remachining to fix the engine. Fortunately, Ford fixed this issue with the 3 valves and the 4 valves, and so this was only a problem for the 2 valves from 1997 until 2003. There are ways to preventatively fix this if you do have a 2-valve that hasn't had it done yet. What you can do is essentially re-tap and sleeve the spark plug holes so you can fit a longer plug or a plug with more threads in it. However, like I said, only a problem on the earlier models, and so hopefully if you have an earlier model, this has been addressed already. However, it is a relatively meaningful problem because if you do have spark plug blowout, it can lead to some pretty expensive repairs. Second on our list is the fuel pump driver module. The fuel pump driver module is located within an aluminum housing, and based on where it sits underneath the vehicle, it's prone to getting a lot of dirt, salt, water, and debris caught up in it. And so what happens is all of the dirt and debris ends up getting through the aluminum casing that it's in and causes the driver module to fail. When this happens, it essentially just cuts the engine off completely, and you'll have a no start issue or a really long crank issue. The most telltale sign here is a P1233 engine fault code. And this problem was eventually fixed by Ford. However, if you do run into issues with this, it's a pretty easy DIY just because it's located in an easy to access spot underneath the vehicle. So overall, not that meaningful of a problem. It's a relatively inexpensive and easy thing to fix if you do run into this problem. The third problem that is a little bit less easy to fix and potentially more catastrophic is with the timing chain. The V8 Tritons are known for having very poor timing chain systems that tends to cause a lot of problems in both the 2-valve and 3-valve configurations of this engine. Now, when Ford switched to a 3-valve, they also added variable valve timing, and so that is another kind of problem spot for the 3-valve 5.4s that isn't an issue with the 2 valves since they don't have VVT. However, with the timing chain, essentially what happens is the timing chain tensioner causes slack to build up in the timing chain. So then the timing chain starts slapping around a little bit. It can take out the tensioner, the plastic guide rails, and ultimately can throw timing off pretty significantly on these engines. The 3-valve ones have an issue with the cam phasers, and the cam phasers can cause issues with variable valve timing. So overall, this can be a catastrophic issue if timing gets thrown off to the point that timing's so far off that it causes the pistons and the valves to collide within each other. That would require a full kind of engine out rebuild. And so this is a potentially serious problem. However, you usually do have a little bit of warning time to fix the problem or prevent it from happening. The most kind of telltale sign that your timing chain is on its way out is a loud ticking or rattling noise that you'll hear at the front of the engine. It's pretty loud at idle, and so if you hear anything there, I'd recommend getting it checked out immediately, just since if your timing chain gets thrown off or gets stretched too much, it can lead to some serious problems. Ultimately, the timing chains on the 5.4 V8 tend to last around 100 to 150,000 miles. So if you're in that kind of service range, just pay attention to noises from the engine for a rattling or ticking noise. That means the timing chain probably has a little bit of slack in it and therefore should be replaced. The fourth problem is with the oil pan gasket. When it comes to oil leaks on the 5.4 Triton, the most common one is the oil pan. This is really somewhat of a maintenance item since gaskets naturally fail over time, but with that being said, the oil pan gasket does fail a little bit more frequently than any other gaskets on these engines do. This tends to be more so a problem for higher mileage 5.4s, also ones that probably weren't taken as good care of. But ultimately, it's not the worst problem. DIYing it's not the most difficult, should take about 3 to 6 hours depending on your kind of DIY skills, but the oil pan is at least relatively accessible, and so you don't need a ton of mechanical skill to DIY the fix. So that covers it with our 4 problems. Really the 2 most notable ones are spark plug blowout, just since that can cause some kind of significant damage to the head, as well as timing chain problems, because if timing gets too far off, it can essentially grenade the whole engine and require a full rebuild. However, with that being said, the spark plug issue was fixed from 2004 onwards. In addition to that, for vehicles that it wasn't fixed on, those are old enough to where hopefully this problem has been addressed and fixed. But if you are looking at buying one, or you do have one, and it is higher mileage and older 2-valve, and it hasn't had the spark plug fix, I'd go ahead and recommend looking into that. So outside of that, the other kind of main thing is the timing chain. So just make sure you properly maintenance the timing chain and listen for any noises that are coming from it. And then with respect to the fuel pump driver module and the oil pan gasket, these really aren't that material of issues, and so I'm not going to ding the engine any bit for having those 2 problems. So overall, this is, I would say, an above average engine when it comes to reliability, so long as you make sure you prevent any spark plug blowout issues and you properly take care of the timing chain system. This is a pretty reliable and pretty solid engine that should easily last 200,000+ miles. We actually owned one of these for a number of years and really had no problems with the engine itself. However, we were on about the 3rd transmission with about 120,000 miles on it, and so we had a lot of transmission issues, but outside of that, the engine was very strong and very solid. So that covers it for the guide on the 5.4 Triton. Above average reliability, solid engine when properly maintained. If you appreciate this video and our content, we'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and as always, if you're looking for more information on the 5.4 Triton V8, we've written a blog post on our Tuning Pro website that you can go check out in the link below.